the Bruce Lees. It's like you gotta just be loose, and that just comes through time under the bar, repetition, practice.
And
I fear not the man that throws 10,000 punches one time, but the man that throws one punch 10,000 times.
No
Oh
permission
my
needed.
God.
No permission needed. We are good to go.
Got it.
All right, rock.
What a world we live in.
Technology, man, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh my God. Until Skynet blows us all up. So cheers. Let's enjoy it while we're here.
First off, how do I throw a knockout punch?
Listen, there's a science to everything. I know boxing is called the sweet science for a reason. So I don't know if you can see right here. It's the formula for force. Force equals mass times acceleration. So to generate force, you got to take the mass of your body, that fist, and generate as much acceleration as possible. So that means a lot of torque. That means getting your whole body weight into it, not just trying to punch through your arm, but turning the hip, generating that power from the toe all the way through the knee, the hip, the elbow, the shoulder, the whole body, and getting, again, as much weight to move as quickly as possible and that little target. So you got to eye it and you got to get the weight behind it. Yeah, and the rest is, I mean, it's just like anything else, repetition and practice.
What do people do wrong? They line up, they clench their fist, they walk to the machine, and they swing, and they miss. What goes wrong? What's going wrong?
Couple of things. Your eye on the prize. You've heard that since, your coach from third grade, like Little League, eye on the prize. So you can't hit what you don't see. So what a lot of people do is they're so worried about the power. I got my Hoochie Daddy shorts on. Don't mind that. They're so worried about the power that they get so tight and they kind of close their eyes and just kind of swing for the fences, as opposed to looking through their target. All right. Relaxing the shoulders, doing a little shimmy before, and letting the body, letting the mechanics, letting the technique do the work. So that's why, listen, punching is hard. It's not as easy as just balling up your fist and like letting them go. There's an actual technique to generating as much force as your body can generate. So eye on the prize, slow it down, deep breath in, and make sure you exhale through that punch. That's why you hear the Bruce Lees. It's like you gotta just be loose, and that just comes through time under the bar, repetition, practice. I fear not the man that throws 10,000 punches one time, but the man that throws one punch 10,000 times. Beautiful. Listen, the most beautiful houses in the world. So let's say I'm in beautiful New York City right now. Do you start a beautiful build at the penthouse or in the basement, the foundation, the pipes, the gutter? So people don't realize that your stance, your foundation, that's your structure. That's the pillars of which the punch is going to be built upon. So based on your hip width, you want to make sure you're not too squared up to the target so you can generate torque from the hips and really twist into it. You got to make sure your feet are the proper distance apart. Again, making sure your hands are up and relaxed, making sure you can breathe through the punch, making sure you can see where you're hitting. And that really just comes from practice. And luckily there's so many videos. Just make sure you're getting the right sources. So many videos on YouTube, so many, accounts that you can follow on Instagram that will teach the mechanics of proper punching. But everybody wants to throw the Mike Tyson knockout punch, but they don't want to do the reps to get up the foundation and just, put in the work to build up to that. Mike Tyson wasn't knocking people out because, he was obviously a force of nature from birth, but countless hours, countless repetition, like countless times when he didn't want to do the training but did it. And I'm not saying you have to do that to be a hero at your local carnival or arcade, but if you want to do anything and if you want to do it right, you gotta practice.
So how can I learn this in Rumble or any class like
that?
Yeah,
so what I wanted to do, I grew up using martial arts and jiu-jitsu specifically, and boxing a little bit later on, and football and strength training kind of as my temple. I was very out of control as a kid. I was diagnosed with every DSM condition under the sun, from oppositional defiant disorder to ADHD to, I don't know, just I got the dog in me. So my teachers would try to tether me to the desk, and I had this boundless energy. So I put it in something constructive, which was training my body, which led me, 20, 30 years later to Rumble and establishing Rumble. So we utilize the sweet science of boxing, but I wanted to bring it to the masses because where I grew up, in the gyms that I grew up in, I'm the first to say they're really intimidating. They are very welcoming, but they don't look like it to the untrained eye. You see these guys that are sweating and muscly and the gi and no gi, and just people are really out there working hard. And if you're not used to that environment, it can be very intimidating. So what I wanted to do, and the timing was so perfect for it, was I wanted to bring the principles, the strength that you can gain from boxing, the attitude, the life parallels that you can learn from boxing, and beating the hell out of that bag, and overcoming the tiredness and the fatigue and the mental strain of training boxing, but coupling that in a great with a great workout with strength training, and then packaging it in a way that was highly digestible for the masses. Because I can't get people excited about boxing and watching UFC and watching, rest in peace, Friday Night Lights or Friday Night Fights. But I can't get people excited if they're not kind of bought into the whole thing. So we found Rumble to be a really credible and authentic way where you can kind of dip your toes in the baby pool of boxing. And then if you really want an old school traditional boxing gym like a Gleason's, we've been such a good buffer for the Gleason's, the Church Streets, the Trinities, the more traditional bricks and mortar boxing gyms. But people will start here, which is what I love. And we play so well with everybody in the community.
Building Rumble from a one studio in 23rd Street now being a global empire.
What do you mean? Building it from the basement of the Lexington Hotel, where we would put up little like gym mats that we got at like the Dick's Sporting Goods or Modell's or wherever it was, and there was asbestos on the walls, and or even from its humbler beginnings, we had to drive out 2 hours to Long Island to a space that had our big aqua bags hanging already, so we could bring the little speaker that we got at like Best Buy, and set up and test the routine and test the formula and have our friends and family out there before we even had four walls. We just had a hope, a dream, and a good team. So there's principles, again, why I love training, not just boxing, but strength training. Is it requires discipline, and you don't necessarily see the results instantly, but that doesn't deter you from staying the course and sticking to the plan. So Rumble, started at one studio. I'm in our second studio built, but on 23rd Street between 6th and 7th Avenue, 2017. And now there's 14 signature stores, which are all the big locations, the New York, the DC, Philly, Los Angeles, San Francisco. And then we have over 300 franchisees, which are our smaller footprints, spearheaded by Exponential Fitness, spearheaded by them opening up all across the globe. I just got back from Rumble in Bondi, Australia. So that's how great, and I'm getting stopped at the Sydney Opera House from people, yo, Rumble guy, I took your class at New York City in 2017 in Chelsea. And I'm outside the Opera House, someplace I've never been before. You couldn't be further away from New York. So that kind of impact takes a big team, and it takes a strategy, and it takes, listen, we weathered a pandemic. We weathered a tumultuous economy. It takes a lot of hits and taking a lot of lumps. And to quote the great Sly Stallone, one of our investors, it's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep on going. So that's business 101. And I'm not saying anything that people don't already know, but sometimes it's nice to hear the basics, because listen, the basics work in or outside of the ring.
What was more fun for you? The basement, hey, the old pads, or now being day-to-day for 1,000 shops?
All of it, because it's so unique. It's so interesting. I love creating value. So I always say this one Muhammad Ali quote that luckily I learned when I was a little asshole kid, being very selfish. And it really changed my perspective on life. And the quote is, and I say it in every single podcast because that's how impactful and important this quote is service to others is our rent for our room here on earth. So when I coupled with Eugene Rem, who is probably one of the greatest restaurateurs, and he started out as a nightlife impresario in New York City, the hardest city to make it, with Tenjun, and building the Catch Empire to a ton of restaurants across the world, across the country, and more opening up now that he's partnered with Tillman Fertitta. I love creating value for others. I love creating experiences for others, because there were so many times when I felt so in my own head and isolated that I wanted to create something where people could come and still be themselves, still be uniquely and authentically themselves, but be supported by a badass crew and support their own ascension. And whatever that is, whether it's to be a better boxer, whether it's to be a better, to be stronger, to be healthier, to have more energy for your kids, your loved ones, whatever that is, you can find it here. And that's what I love. So I'm very honored that I get to do it on a bigger scale now. But the most fun for me is creation. Art comes in many different forms, and this is just my canvas. This is just, these are just my paint brushes, and the music is the different color Pantones, and the aesthetics of Rumble are the different palettes that I use to paint the picture. But I just like being an artist.
What was the early struggles going on when you first started it up? Was there anyone that said to you at one point, a boxing class for everybody every day? That's crazy. You're never going to do it.
Of course. I mean, I when I first left my old position to start Rumble, I was a master trainer for another brand, and I was building my own name, and I was doing a lot. I had a show on Bravo, and I was doing all this press for the Times and Vanity Fair and Harper's Bazaar, Elle Magazine, all these things, building up my own brand so I could eventually launch what I had been writing on a composition notebook for 3 years, which was the ideation of Rumble. And everybody told me 9 out of 10 gyms fail. It's a saturated market, an overly saturated market. Nobody's going to want to box all the time. You're niching yourself out too much. You're closing in on your customer base. And to be honest, I loved every second of that. I loved, because my whole life, whether it's been my teachers that have tried to, like I said, tether me to the desk and stop my energy from bouncing off the walls, or, whether it was, those people in my life that, told me that I couldn't do it. I had to do it. So that, honestly, like those, that was fuel for the fire. That was the chip on the shoulder that really said, kept me pushing in those dark nights and those long nights, working 6, 7 days a week. When we launched, I was working, teaching on top of doing all the press and the building and training the trainers, and, working for expansion and plotting the expansion of Rumble. I was teaching, sometimes 20 plus classes a week. So 20 to 25 hours a week, 6, 7 days a week, teaching in that studio, pouring your heart out. And it takes a lot of energy. So thank God I literally lived the life that I was telling people they should live to feel better and have more energy to be able to do the things that they want to do. That Kobe Bryant approach, the most important thing we can do is to inspire others to be great at what they want to do. So I don't want to turn people into gym rats, but I want to turn people into people that can have the energy and the strength and the confidence and the wherewithal to do the damn thing themselves, whatever that is, whatever arena they want to fight in. So, it takes a lot of consistent effort. And sometimes that consistent effort doesn't apparently pay off. But the culmination of all those little micro battles that you win on the day to day, that's what creates something special. It's not ever just luck or timing or even work ethic. It's all of it. You got to have it all. And that's when you create something really special. You can train, motivation, and motivation is very fleeting. So you have to continuously train that motivation until it forms discipline. And discipline is the shit that you do when you don't feel like it, when you're tired, when people are telling you that you can't do it, when 9 out of 10 gyms fail, when you're doubting yourself, when you have, nothing but that memory of motivation that's kind of remaining in the back of your head to keep you going and keeping you pushing on. You learn that. Not many people are born with that, if any at all. It is trained, and it can be trained. Anybody. I am certainly not special at all. I'm the first to admit it. I'm just some random dude from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that trained himself habitually to be what I wanted to be. And to be completely transparent, like, I'm on this whirlwind trip right now, bouncing between LA and New York, filming, teaching classes, running all over. I'm launching 5 other businesses. I'm launching a venture studio, incubating new brands, and developing another gym concept. Fuck, I'm exhausted. And I got that notification 30 minutes ago that I had to do a podcast. And the first thing through my mind was, how the fuck am I going to do this? I'm exhausted. I've been running around for, I don't know, 10 years straight. But I said, and literally I was walking up Lafayette Street in New York City. And after I said, like, got that notification saying, fuck, I said, you know what? I always kill it. I always kill it because I've trained for these moments. I've trained to do this in in my sleep so that when I'm tired, when I'm not motivated, when I don't feel like doing it, I can still bring you the same energy. I can still bring you the same passion, the same attention, the same that you deserve, because this is your time. How dare I, because I got going on, disrespect your time? So again, I'm not special. I'm not different. I just did these things early on, fortunately, and learned them, relatively early on. That has built me to this point. But anybody can do it. Anybody. It's just hard.
How do you unwind? How do you find balance to not go crazy, to
The
not burn out?
balance is a myth for the most part, to be honest. If you look at the greats in any arena, in any, sport, in any entrepreneurial endeavor, they lived an extreme life of imbalance for a long time before they worked towards that balance. So it also depends on what your barometer of success is. Is it money? Is it impact? Is it service to others? Is it a culmination? Is it a combination of those things? So success for me was being able to build my life and where I work and what I do to create with that kind of personal lifestyle that I wanted. So I love training. It makes me feel good. I know I have to do it. I feel better even if I don't want to do it. I feel better after I do it. So I built a place where I could work, build, and I'm going to take a class right after this. That's why I'm taking the podcast here at Rumble. We started in 2017. I've been training for 23 years now, more than some of your listeners have been alive. And I'm going to go take a class, and then I have to go run up to Polo Bar for a meeting on a new company that I'm consulting with. But I know that I'm going to feel so much better once I take that class. So I was fortunate enough to work with friends, find my circle. I keep a really small circle. I found my friends that I could build with. I found in my day to day those ways that I could get kind of my personal time in while still running around and building the Rumbles and building all the other stuff that I want to build. So but again, if you look at tell anybody, tell Mayweather, tell Arturo Gatti, may rest in peace, may tell Tyson, hey, you should have some more balance in your life. Don't train 6 days a week. Don't go up to the Catskills and don't talk to your family for a little bit. I know you want to be great, but nah, like you got to find that balance. It's just, again, it's not true. But you do absolutely have to take care of your mental well-being. That's 100%, because you're no good to anybody else if you're completely shot. So when I'm saying, like, I don't mean no days off and sleep when you're dead. And I think that it's bullshit. I love to sleep. I love to rest. I love to recover. I love to do those things that help me re-up my energy so that I can give it freely and unencumbered. So I've been very fortunate to build a life and a lifestyle around my entrepreneurial kind of endeavors.
So for the next entrepreneur, what are the
Yeah.
do's and don'ts of entrepreneurship?
You got to focus on what you can give rather than what you can get. So oftentimes people think they have this grand idea, whether it's a product or a service, and they think everybody's going to love this thing. I'm going to get so much money for it. I'm going to just put it out there, and they're just going to throw money at me. I don't care if it's the best idea in the world, and that might work in the short term. But how do you continuously provide value? How do you focus on the product and not the profit? And if you focus on what you can give and chase those relationships, not just those short-term checks or those singular transactions, you're going to build something of substance. So identify what you're good at. We all have innate skills, but those innate skills have to be honed. So don't be upset that you don't have, the biggest arsenal of weaponry. Focus on what you do have and sharpen the hell out of it. And you'd be so surprised that you can kind of like MacGyver, like The Last of Us, like make new weapons out of what you have. But you got to sharpen your skills. But it all falls down, or all boils down to that quote: service to others is our rent for our room here on earth. But let me expand upon that. When you serve others, they're going to help you pay your rent as well. So think about that. So most people focus on just what they're creating and not how their creation impacts and fits with the market. And that's the disjunction. How can you articulate your product in a really authentic fashion? How can you articulate your brand consistently so that your consumer is not confused by what you're offering, whether it's a product or a service? And how can you do that when you don't fucking feel like doing it? And how can you identify ways to not make your life better, not get the watch, not get the car, not get the extra home for, for vacation, but how do you give more to your customer? How do you give more to your client? And that's been the foundation of everything that I've done, even before I had two pennies to rub together. When I first started out as a trainer, teaching like 3 classes a week in New York City, teaching the 9 o'clock spot in New York City. And people were saying, I was making $20 a week, if that. Sometimes people wouldn't even show up to take my class. And, now I've through all the things that I've been talking about, which again are not profound, they're just the basics. Put in the work consistently, improve your skills so that you can better serve others, and do it whether you feel like doing it or not. And that's a muscle that has to be trained. You're not just born with it.
Is there a trick or a secret to doing it on those days you don't want to, or is it just you either do it or don't do it? Your second person.
Man, there's no hacks. I think there's this rise of this kind of Instagram inspirational figure that, the only people that are really getting rich and doing well are the figures themselves. They're not really helping that many people because they say that they have this secret formula that only they have, this proprietary formula that leads to success. And what I've found reading, I don't know, every book from, Buffett to Dale Carnegie, like it doesn't matter. I'm just giving you the underlying principles and it's all dressed up fancily. But the end of the day is you either do the work or you don't, right? You either find a way to do the things that you don't feel like doing and doing them to the public, at least, like, and showing them that you really want to be there, that you really want to do it, or you don't. And that's fine. There are days when I fail at that, but I pick it up. I don't let that L, get to me. I've learned so many. I probably learned more from my losses and, my bad experiences with drugs and with, the missteps in my life, because it teaches you empathy. It teaches you gratitude. And these are all really important things that your business should be based out of. It shouldn't be based out of, again, to tie back to that, like, how can I get? How can I consume? How can I leech from others? How can I be a parasite from others? As opposed to, damn, I went through a lot of shit in my life. I don't want anybody to feel bad like that. How can I give? And you'd be so surprised how it gets you out of your own dark mental places as well when you focus on what you give rather than what you can get. But there's no secret. There's no hack. There's no pill, limitless pill that you can take. All that stuff is, making somebody else rich and making somebody else successful, but probably not you. So you just have to train it. There's no other way. And you have to take responsibility. That's the biggest thing as an entrepreneur, for the good and the bad. And Rumble's had a really rocky road too, through the pandemic, and we've had missteps as well, obviously. And I take responsibility for those. You cannot be a leader and just lead when it's light outside. You have to be a leader in the pouring fucking rain, in the thunderstorm, and the typhoons, and the hurricanes. And you can't do that if you're not confident. You can't do that if you're not physically strong. That's why I love the gym so much. I don't give about, the six pack. That's all fun. That'll get you some likes on Instagram, but that's not going to keep you training. What keeps me training now is I know that it makes me feel better. I know that it gives me more energy. I know that it makes my immune system healthier. I know that it makes me feel more confident when I walk into a boardroom or walk into a meeting. So that's why. So you got to train that physical vessel and make it a point and schedule that shit in as an entrepreneur, especially because time is tight. You got kids, you got bills, you got a family, you got loved ones, you do have to try to delegate time to them as well. But you got to schedule in those appointments for self-improvement of yourself so that, again, you can better serve others.
So with that, what was the biggest mistake that became your biggest bounce back learning experience from?
Almost overdosing on drugs, 100%, by far. When you've lost everything, Fight Club, you're free to do anything. I was dead. I'm on borrowed time right now. This is all. So I am free to do whatever the hell I want because I remember where I was. But with that being said, I remember those dark times and I never want to go back there. So that's my motivation that fuels my discipline. I don't want to end up where I was. I don't want to end up, feeling like I have all this potential and all this energy to give, but didn't have an outlet to give it. I don't want to do that. So on the days when I wake up tired as hell, when I don't feel like doing it, I think back to those moments. I don't suggest everybody go out and overdose. So please don't do that. But, at all. I haven't done any drugs in 15 years now since that time. So I think it's really important to, it's smart to learn from your own mistakes. It's genius to learn from other people's mistakes. And so let me be the first to tell you that life is very fragile and things change very fast. So there is no tomorrow. There is right now. There is no, I doubt myself. So, I'm going to let that doubt win out. You can't let that doubt win out because it's going to be prevalent always. And it might even come more so when you're at the top. You're like, damn, do I deserve to be here? Why am I here? Can I keep this up? So you're always going to have that doubt. But you just got to learn, you got to find your tools that work for you so that you can, in the face of that doubt, in the face of all the adversity that you're going to face, because everybody does, you got to figure out how to weather the storm. And that's a real personal thing. And I did it by, like I said, going to the extremes. I had my bouts with depression and anxiety and went a very dark route for a while, but I was fortunate to have my family who have been so supportive and were there for me. And then I was fortunate enough to remember the principles that I learned early on from boxing and strength training and jujitsu that got me out of that funk. Why I'm here right now is probably I always got to give Warren Stout. He's a black belt under Enzo Gracie, jiu-jitsu. He a Lehigh wrestler, another PA kid. He started Stout training facility in Lawrenceville in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I had just almost died. And I was driving by and they were literally hanging the sign. There were like 3 people outside and it said Warren Stout, Enzo Gracie, Pittsburgh. And I had trained with Matt Serra and Nick Serra at Serra Jiu-Jitsu in Long Island for going to Hofstra. So I drove by and I remembered how I would walk out of Serra Jiu-Jitsu exhausted, just like feeling so challenged and feeling so accomplished, but just beat up that I didn't even want to go party. I didn't even want to do anything else. I just wanted to rest and recover and focus so I could do it again. So it was so much fun. It was so much fun learning those principles. So driving by and seeing them outside really, I think, saved my life and is probably why it definitely is why I'm here right now. Because after going through all that, I threw myself back into that world. I went up to them. They literally adjusted. They weren't even open yet. They were 3 days out from opening. I introduced myself. I said, hi, I'm Noah. I'm real fucked up right now. Can you guys, take me under your wing? I trained with them 5-6 days a week for a year and a half. And that gave me the mental and emotional strength as I was going through withdrawals and panic attacks and anxiety to leave Pittsburgh, go back to New York City, eventually end up becoming a trainer with that 3 classes a week, and then building, up my personal brand so that I can subsequently leave and launch Rumble. So life is a series of fortunate and unfortunate events, and it's all part of it. It's all par for the course. You just got to learn how to navigate it.
I think you probably already answered it already. What is your favorite quote? You answered that twice.
Oh God, I have so many. I have so many. But I mean, let's bring it on home. I got to go back. I'll give you another one because now I feel redundant. Service to others is our rent for our room here on earth. And that is by far one of my favorites. And the other one is Steve Jobs. It's focus on the product, not the profit. All right. And I'll leave you with one more. We train the body rigorously so that it is not disobedient to the mind. That's Seneca. That's some Stoic philosophy for you, some stoicism to leave you. So we train the body rigorously so that it is not disobedient to the mind. Because tying back to the fact that your body is your one true piece of real estate that you own. You might own your house, but you're not going to be buried with it. But you own that body, whether you step outside of your home or not. And that body houses your soul, your spirit. It houses your mind. So if that's weak, you can't have the strongest mind. You can't. It's not possible. So train the body rigorously, focus on the mind too. Obviously, you got to make sure you're focusing on developing your, your skills so that you can better give and better serve others. But self-care is not selfish. That'll be my cheesy trainer line that I gotta say once a podcast, the corny shit. But it's so true. Most people think that taking that 45 minutes, that 10 minutes a couple times a day to really invest in themselves is selfish. They're taking it away from their family, their loved ones. But, you know, don't you want to give them the best version of yourself and the most positive, powerful impact player that you can be so that you can better be there for them? And that's really what I talk about. And that's why I want to build businesses in the space that help people do that.